Many people think rain grew this big because it was cheaper. But if you look closely, rain grew this big because it broke the rules and took the risks that traditional mobile telecoms were too afraid to take. And that decision put the entire industry on their toes. If there is one biggest impact that rain has made in the South African telecom space, is that it has restructured the public psychology towards data. Rain permanently broke the mental model of what mobile data should cost and how it should be consumed. Before rain, data was a bit of a scarce commodity because prices were high, and we generally used it with the anxiety of it either depleting too quickly or expiring over the next few days. Users had to ration the usage. Traditional mobile networks like Vodacom, MTN, and Telkom trained their users to fear streaming, regular updates, and heavy usage. And then came rain, and it did one disruptive thing extremely well. It normalized the always online behavior. Rain offered unlimited data at cheap and fixed prices. To make it better, all of this required only a simple subscription, no binding contracts. This became the best home wireless alternative to fiber. Rain changed how South Africans behave online by setting new standards. This is Decoding Africa with Max. In the last episode, we dissected Rain's mistakes and execution blind spots. In this episode, we'll do the opposite. We'll break down the innovations, creative decisions, and the strategies that made Rain such a big deal, so popular and so successful, even when their performance wasn't so perfect. Let's begin. First up, let's talk about their business model advantage. Now, Rain did one thing that competitors weren't doing. It went data only. No voice or SMS bundles. These were only added later on. This might sound a bit limited, but it actually gave Rain an operational and positioning advantage. Generally, traditional telecoms are trapped in complexity. They have voice cross subsidies, airtime logic, bundle confusion, legacy billing systems, and whatever more. But Rain cut all of that. And this gave Rain three advantages. First, cost clarity. Customers knew exactly what they were paying for. Second, internal focus. The engineering, marketing, and operations all revolved around one thing, and that's data. And lastly, mental positioning. Rain wasn't seen as another network trying to compete with Vodacom or MTN. So when customers hear the word Rain, they immediately think data and internet, nothing else. That mental shortcut actually mattered because that's how Rain stood out. Instead of trying to compete with existing standards, Rain decided to set new standards in the industry. To penetrate the market, Rain attacked one important pressure point on how South Africans think about data. The one most important psychological pressure point in South Africa is the anxiety around data usage. Now, what do I mean by anxiety? Let's explore this in depth. The first instance of this is data rationing. Data bundles on traditional mobile networks are always measured. For example, with a 220 Rand today, a user can buy 7.5 gig on Vodacom, which will only last them 7 days. So now the user has to balance between if I use too much, my data will run out quickly. But if I don't use it at all, my data expires in a few days anyway. My money goes to waste. And the second instance of this is contracts. If a user takes out a data contract with, say, Vodacom, for example, the network generally does not allow the user to exit the contract anytime as they please, not without early termination fees and other complications. Rain killed this anxiety by providing unlimited data at ridiculously low prices and no contracts, only a simple monthly subscription that you can cancel anytime. And this gave Rain an incredible advantage because it gives users a sense of mental relief and a safety net. And when users feel safe, they tolerate imperfection longer. And that's why users complain and criticize the brand loudly but continue to stay with them anyway. Rain providing cheap unlimited data with no contracts has gained it incredible market advantage. But how long will this advantage last? How long will Vodacom, MTN, and Telkom continue to keep letting Rain get away with it? Rain grew fast and popular because it offered something that no one else in the industry was offering. That's affordable, contract-free, and unlimited 5G connection. And this worked because big telecoms were slow, too cautious and expensive, with too many terms and conditions. But that window is gradually closing now. Competitors are now catching up. For instance, MTN, Vodacom, and Telkom now offer 5G coverage, fixed wireless alternatives, and large data bundle volumes at lower prices than ever before. So Rain is no longer competing in a vacuum. Now here's where Rain's trouble actually begins. Rain's survival was based mostly on tolerance. Users tolerated Rain because they had the best offers, and because of this, users tolerated network congestion, inconsistent speeds, and weak support. All of this because Rain was cheaper, unlimited, and felt like a savior from the big telecoms that were ripping users off with their expensive data bundles. The problem with this is that tolerance is a conditional and short lived advantage. It disappears the moment alternatives improve. Once customers realize that alternatives are leveling up and they now have options, patience will collapse like a sandcastle, and they'll simply leave quietly. Being outperformed by rivals that are bigger than you while dealing with public trust issues and a declining customer base is a bit of a challenge, especially in such a competitive market. In light of its recent performance issues, Rain needs to stabilize performance perception, rebuild customer trust, and strengthen a more professional and prompt support team. Now, this brings us to the end of our episode, but before we close, let's take a moment to go through one strategic lesson that we can all learn from Rain. A small force applied to the right pressure point can destabilize an entire system. Rain has proven one thing to the world, that in business, you don't have to be the biggest to win. You just need to focus all your power on one most critical part of the market and execute it simply and precisely. Rain didn't try to outbuild MTN or outspend Vodacom. Instead, it targeted what customers already hated most about telecoms. That's long contracts, complex and expensive bundles, feeling trapped and anxious, and paying more as usage grows. Then it packaged the solution in one clean promise: unlimited data, cheaper prices, and no contracts. And this gave Rain a good head start. But here's the uncomfortable extension of this lesson. This is the part most founders miss. Market entry is emotional, but market survival is operational. Rain mastered the first phase, but struggled in the second. The one most important lesson here is that disruption will earn you attention, but it's execution that will earn you permanence. So, if you're starting a business or entering a new market, win entry by solving people's emotional pain points, or at least package a solution in a way that appeals to your customers' psychological pain points. But scale only after your operations can absorb the pressure and traffic that will come with the success. And with this last piece, we conclude our session. Catch me in the next episode. Cheers.